Welcome to online tutorial 11, and we definitely are heading towards the end, yeah? Today I want to talk to you about honesty and the biggest challenge I think that faces many of you in getting to the very end of the unit. I'm very comfortable with anything that you have to say in your reflections that's honest, right? Because they're designed to enable you to get down to lower levels of depth in your underlying psyche. But honesty is something that sort of tends to elude us, not because we're dishonest, but because sometimes it's very uncomfortable. It's almost like a natural part of our lives is to avoid things that we most probably know in one way or another are true, but it requires either a correction in our behaviour to address them, or it requires us to accept that we're less than perfect in other aspects of our life. And that's most probably the biggest challenge for us all. This lovely little book I've got, As It Was Told, it's written by one of my favourite authors, Robert McIver, who promised that he would never write an autobiography. So it's very interesting in reading through the first page of how he gets around this challenge of not facing up to it. But there's one little short paragraph here that I wanted to read to you, because I think it's one of those challenging things that I think in a lot of ways an aspect of this confronts you now. So let me just read this little paragraph for you. In the courts they swear to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They never do. They never can. But without honest witnesses the story would never be known. So what's happened with you this semester? I would love to see an honest witness step forward in that section 2 reflection that you have at the end of the semester. I would love to see an honest witness step forward and fill in the teaching evaluation for the unit, for the teaching, right? As I said to you at the start of the semester, we typically get, 10 or 15 students who say, "That was fantastic," and 10 or 15 students who say, "That was terrible." And we're sort of left with this big space in the middle of really trying to make sense of did this approach, did it work, was it useful for your learning? So I'm going to give you a challenge, right? Whether you loved it or you hated it, I'd love to hear from you, right? In your reflection, and I would really, really love to hear from you in the teaching evaluations that QUT have sent out to you in regard to the unit. It would help us to get a much more complete picture of where the middle space is being occupied by the students. Is it something that's they can see the value of, it's working for them, or are we, no, or are we, yeah, actually not too bad, but, so there's my challenge to you. So firstly, this notion of an honest witness. I would love to think that the aims of the unit, when we started the unit we talked about this notion of a low cognitive load. So you weren't going to get this huge amount of theory that was going to be replaced every week, right? You're just going to get this, as it turns out, a framework, a collection of theories pulled together into a framework that we wanted you to be able to use backwards and forwards in your conversations, in your own thinking, in the way that you demonstrate your understanding of an idea of your choice, okay? How's that work for you? Right? Have you felt uncomfortable? I know many of you have, and that you're uncomfortable is fine. It's actually part of the process, but can you make sense of that uncomfortableness in your own life? Right? There's the challenge for you. That's what I'm looking for in that final reflection in section 2. I'm looking for you to tell me if it's worked for you. It's like, wow, this was a really neat way of doing things that really worked for me. Why? Why did it work for you, right? This was a process that I really didn't have any time for. This was something that really annoyed me. This was, why? Why did it not work for you, right? So don't look back at me. It's easy to blame me, right? I don't want you to give me the praise if it worked for you, just like I really wouldn't, I'd prefer you didn't just simply say, Now obviously that's not to say that I've done everything exactly as it is. But we had an approach, low cognitive load. And from your own experience, from your own perspective, from your own natural approach to learning, how did that work for you, right? And work your way through. There's always a deeper answer to why it did or didn't work for you, all right? So that's a big part of this notion of what have you learned about yourself as a learner, right? I'm assuming 90+% of you haven't engaged with this style of unit before. Only meet 3 times, get this video coming out every week, trying to sort of coach you in a particular direction, trying to get you to trust the process, right? Feedback comes via audio, not written notes, right? Working with your group, but it's not compulsory. It's entirely up to you to have the responsibility to come in and do that process, right? Sort of like the real world in a lot of ways, yeah? Sort of like that process that you're going to be entering fairly soon, where it's either, if it's to be, it's going to be up to you, right? You've either got an investment in this space or you haven't, right? So that's my challenge for you. Just like it was a big challenge for this guy who promised he'd never ever write an autobiography, but he came to the conclusion that having lived a really interesting life in terms of the ideas that he challenged throughout his life and the things that he pioneered, that someone had to be an honest witness of that experience. Someone had to actually allow the truth to be known. So that's my challenge to you. My challenge to you is to be an honest witness of what you've just experienced, for better or for worse, right? In terms of the extent to which you can walk away and say, I have learnt something about myself as a learner, right? And as a result of that, I can sense some strategies that I might need to develop, to adopt, to implement, to make me able to move forward, right? So I'm looking forward to reading your reflections. They're always the highlight of my semester. When we get to the end, you've had a chance to work your way through the process. You're starting to make sense of this process in terms of the vertical depth that we're trying to get. Short, punchy statements followed by a why. And write the statements so that they beg for a question, all right? Sometimes you write a statement, you put the why there and you think, I don't really know what I'm asking a question of. Well, rewrite it. Rewrite the statement so it's a nice bold statement. I truly believe that I have been a better learner this semester. Why? That begs for an answer, right? That is always the highlight for me, because it gives me one source of feedback in terms of, has this approach worked, right? I know it's not going to work for you all, right? And that's a challenge that I've still trying to deal with. Where's the balance in this process, right? I don't want to have any more people over here not enjoying the process than is required. I really want to be able to move more of those folks at least to the center, at least being curious and willing to sort of try and experience something. And obviously I'm always rapt when we've got people in that space who are thinking, this was really cool, I really enjoyed it, right? But I acknowledge there's quite a spectrum here, right? But trust me, whether you're here and you absolutely hated it, or you're here and you absolutely loved it, I want to hear the same thing from you. Why? Why did you hate it, love it, right? And the process will reward you equally, right? The process will reward you equally if you follow through and tell me why that is the case. Not just the surface level. It's not something I've done before and I didn't like it. Oh, I've been waiting for this freedom before. Down. Get down in those lower levels and tell me what it actually is about your psyche that's been activated the wrong way, the right way, the challenge that you've found and you've been able to move yourself forward, the extent to which you've come and asked for help. I've had quite a few students who have come in and said, not really sure about this, can you help me with that? Not a problem at all, all right? I said that at the start of the semester, all right? If you contact me, I'll try and get straight back to you. I'll try and give you as much help as I can, all right? Now, I know that may not be everyone's natural approach. If you haven't asked for help, ask yourself, why would that be the case, right? There are answers. There are answers for you that will be of great value to you moving forward, not just in other subjects, but in your life. Because at the start of the semester, I said that the outcome that I wanted to help you achieve, 1, that you would understand yourself differently, and 2, that you would be able to see the world differently. I'm hoping a fairly large chunk of you can walk away from the unit at the end of this semester and say, well, regardless of how we went about it, I do understand something about myself differently, and I recognise that to be important, and I can see the world differently. Because when I walk down the street, I think, I wonder what emoji they're using over there. Questions that you wouldn't normally ask, and observations and mindfulness that you wouldn't normally have when you're just walking down the street, right? So there's the challenge. Become an honest witness of your time in the unit. Become an honest witness of yourself as a learner. I can't wait to see what you've all got to say, and I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you who can come along for our last workshop.